This story goes back a few years, maybe to 2013 or 2014. Honestly, it's all a blur now. I think my brain just decided to block most of it out over time. It was Christmas break, and I was a freshman in college in New York City. This meant I was thousands of miles away from my family, who all lived back in Bulgaria. For those who don't know, Bulgaria is a small country in Eastern Europe, right next to Romania and Greece. Funnily enough, Bulgaria doesn't have the best reputation for safety, but this story completely flips that idea on its head. I was at JFK, just a few days before Christmas Eve. My grand plan was to surprise my family and friends back home. As you can imagine, the airport was an absolute zoo, packed wall-to-wall with people, which just made the whole travel process 10 times more stressful. After what felt like an eternity of security checks, weighing luggage, and just waiting around, I finally felt a wave of relief as my first flight from Manhattan to Istanbul started to take off. This first leg of the journey was about 8 hours long, so I was already mentally preparing for the usual misery of economy seating. I ended up sandwiched between two men. For context, I'm about 5 feet tall and maybe 110 pounds, so this setup was far from ideal. These guys were easily a foot taller than me and could have overpowered me without a second thought. The man on my right was pretty quiet, had black hair, glasses, and seemed surprisingly fit. But the guy on my left, he was the one who immediately set off alarm bells. He would mumble to himself under his breath and constantly pick at his skin. Every so often, his arm would nudge a little too close to mine. I made a mental note of him and just tried to power through the 8-hour flight. The only thing keeping me going was the thought that I'd be back in my home country in less than 2 days. But that motivation started to dwindle. Whenever I tried to mind my own business, whether I was doing some work or listening to music, I'd catch the guy on my left just studying at me intensely. At first, I tried to shrug it off. Maybe he had a disability, I thought. Something that made him miss social cues. But as the hours dragged on, that explanation felt less and less likely. At one point, I was watching season 2 of American Horror Story on my laptop. Suddenly, the man leaned over and started talking to me. He asked why I was watching a show that, in his words, so poorly represented the mentally ill, murderers, and whatnot. I was completely caught off guard. I nervously asked if he needed something, trying to hint that it's not exactly normal to just interrupt a stranger like that. The season 1 was watching was Asylum, which is all about a mental hospital filled with chilling characters. He looked me dead in the eye and said, with a chilling calmness, "I just think it's messed up how everyone thinks people who skin others alive are crazy. I mean, aren't we all a little like that?" My blood ran cold. I started freaking out internally. Who in the world was I sitting next to? Did anyone else hear what he just said? I forced a small chuckle, trying to act unbothered, as if he'd stole a weird joke. For the rest of that flight, I was absolutely terrified. I seriously considered asking a flight attendant if there was an open seat anywhere else on the plane. Maybe in the back, but I didn't want to cause a scene. Eventually, the flight landed in Istanbul. I grabbed my things as fast as I possibly could and practically sprinted off that plane. I wish I could tell you the story ends there, but it doesn't. The rest of my Christmas vacation was wonderful, but that man's words echoed in my head like a constant, ringing bell. When January rolled around, it was time to pack up again and head back to New York. I was cleaning out my tote bag, throwing away old receipts and trash from my travels, when my fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. It was a disgusting, crumpled note that must have been slipped into my bag while I was asleep on the plane. It read, "I wish I could see what you look like under your skin." I was so disgusted I threw it away immediately, but I really wish I had taken a picture of it for evidence. Because, about a month later, in February, my younger sister sent me a link to a news article. It was about the same exact man from my flight. He had been arrested in Istanbul and was facing charges for multiple counts of assault, attempted kidnapping, and first-degree murder. Reading that article made me feel sick to my stomach. To know I was sitting just inches away from a monster like that for 8 hours. It's a thought that still haunts me. That whole experience completely changed how I felt about traveling alone. For the next few years, I just stayed home for the holidays. It wasn't worth the risk. Thanks for listening to my story. It's a heavy one, I know. but it's a reminder to always trust your gut. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content. Stay safe out there.